A reading from 1 Kings. Many years after the death of King Solomon, a man named Ahab became king of Israel. Ahab was king when God called Elijah to be a prophet. Elijah knew nothing good would come of Ahab's rule, nothing good for the people or the animals or the earth of Israel. Elijah said to Ahab, "There will be a terrible drought. The rain will stop falling. There will not even be dew upon the ground." Elijah wanted to warn King Ahab to stop his evil ways, but Ahab refused to listen. God told Elijah to leave Israel and flee to the east beyond the Jordan River. God directed Elijah to a stream where the water was sweet and cool. God sent ravens to bring food for Elijah, and the birds fed him from their beaks. But after a while, the drought caused the stream to dry up, and Elijah moved on. God sent Elijah to a town called Zarephath, to the home of a widow. Elijah was hungry from his journey, and he asked the woman for bread. She was hungry herself and said, "I have no bread. All I have is a spoonful of oil and a handful of flour. I'm going to make cakes of the oil and flour and cook them. My son and I will eat this, the last of our food, and then we'll starve to death." Elijah tried to comfort her, saying, "Do not be afraid." But of course she was. It is a fearsome thing to starve to death, and worse, to watch a child starve. Then Elijah told her, "Go ahead and prepare your meal. Be sure to make some for me, too." Now the widow must have thought Elijah was a little bit rude and pretty stupid. She had just told him there was only a bit of flour and oil for her and her son. How could she feed 3 people when she could not even feed 2? How could she feed a stranger if it meant starving her own son? But Elijah had gone into the wilderness without food or water. He knew what it was to wait for God to send ravens to feed him. He knew what it meant to trust in the surprising goodness of God. He said, "The jar of meal shall not be spent, the jug of oil shall not be emptied, before the day when God sends rain upon the face of the earth." Elijah was telling the woman to cook her last bit of food and share it with a stranger. He was telling her to use up all the food she had and to believe that more food would be provided. She had to trust. But how could she believe this man? What if he were a liar, a thief who only wanted her last scraps of food? The woman may have fed Elijah with trembling hands, but she did feed him. She cooked a meal for Elijah, her son, and herself. And that meal, which should have been her last, was the first of many, many more. For the jar of flour was never empty from that day forward. The jug of oil was never empty from that day forward. It was all just as Elijah had promised.